So, welcome back to the second part of my top 12 races Blizzard needs to add to World of Warcraft as playable, which is probably not the exact way I phrased the title before, so you know what I mean. And it has to be made as a part 2 because when I speak of script, I rant for way too long, but now we are continuing with the part I recorded last time, so in a moment you will hear the past me, and I have even toyed with the idea of like making the past me like give it a little sepia tone, but then that was the whole bulk of the video and I'd have to put like majority of the video in the sepia tone and nobody would have liked that, so never mind that. Just thought it was funny to mention. And I can definitely tell you I missed some fan favorites. Like people mentioned Tuskar, which I don't think I talked about in the second part. And the Tuskar are definitely one of the very good choices because they even had one of those character models back in Wrath of the Lich King. Maybe they were planned to be actually playable at one point, but in the end we didn't get any races in Wrath. And there's definitely a couple of other options that I don't mention. There are definitely some very good options, but I had to cut it somewhere, or I would talk for hours and hours about all the races and about all the potential options we could have. Like on my blog years ago, I had a whole like mini series of like potential allied races and how they could be implemented with a whole scenario and a mini starting zone for a race as an allied race, including like Mogu, including Anubis Art, which are definitely not the options you hear about often. If you want to check out my blog at arakoa.wordpress.com, then you can check those out there. And the blog is definitely kind of abandoned. I haven't touched it in years, but it's out there. A lot of my old writing is still there, so you can still read it there. Anyway, I will not rant for much longer, because now you're going to hear me ranting a couple of days ago. So, enjoy that. My next race is probably the most unpopular choice out of the whole list, because I want Botany. Yeah, the plant guys that were all very hostile. 99% of them were very hostile to us, so yes, it seems very unlikely. But I think there is a room to like negotiate with them, like convince some of them that perhaps there is like some way to cooperate, that we are also part of nature, like, or find like some tangle of botany that are more into a balance of nature than just taking over everything. Primarily, I like them because they also have a very unique aesthetic, very unique themes. Because we don't have a plant race, they could also have some very unique mechanics to their racial traits. And the same as before, as I said, for many other races on this list, they are just a very unique aesthetic that could really bring something new to WoW. And like I said, with the Saberons, we see what probably is a Botany escaping with the Magar. So they could be like hiding somewhere in the Wailing Caverns and resurfacing now years later once they grew out a little bit. Like, imagine a scenario where we go to the Wailing Caverns to investigate some strange happenings, and we find a bunch of Botany have taken over the place. And at first they're hostile, but then we find that these guys are more into nature and balance, and we get some druids to negotiate with them, and they end up actually joining us to help Azeroth, so Azeroth doesn't fall to the same fate as Drano did. The history, the quest line writes itself. Now I come to some that will be probably very popular, because I got two races under one position, because I got the Jinyu and the Hosen. They're like, technically they're already an allied race, because we've allied them on Pandaria years ago, and they actually joined the Alliance and the Horde. So like, there should have been playable since way before. And they also have, very unique aesthetics. We have fish people that are like, not really Morlocks, but are related to Morlocks. So we have those fish people, and we have the monkeys. And again, Hosen are stupid and silly, and they would make for a really great humor that would really complement what we already have in the game well. And the Jinyu, if you want to make them Jinyu or the Yankoans from BFA, and the Jinyu would also present us some unique flavor. Because what else are we going to get in the coming expansions? What, the 10th elf race? Or a 5th dwarf race? Like, do we really need more elves? Like, yeah, people play elves, okay? That's fine. But they can play how many elf races there already are. Like, give us the funny monkeys. I want to play a monkey. Well, number 10 for me is one of the OG allied races, the old allies of the Night Elves that have been with them since even before any of the games started. And I'm talking about Furbolgs. Probably not a very popular option like many of them on my list, but I always liked Furbolgs. There was a toy, it wasn't called the toy back then, it was a quest item in Vanilla WoW that I probably still have on a character that I no longer play, on a very old character that I played in Vanilla WoW. It was a quest item from Ashenvale that lets you transform into a Furbolg for like virtually unlimited time. As long as you didn't get hit, you could stay being a Furbolg. And I loved using that, and I really got to like the Furbolgs after all the story in WarCraft 3. Unfortunately, we had to kill a lot of them in WarCraft 3 because they were all getting corrupted left and right. But there's still a lot of Furbolgs that are uncorrupted, and we are finding more and more uncorrupted Furbolgs everywhere we go. So there's still, a lot of them. But there's certainly more of them than Darkspear Trolls. And they are one of the OG allied races. So like, why don't we get the Furbolgs? I'm pretty sure bear people would also be popular. Not as popular as cat people, but still a lot of people would probably play them. I used to bring it up on like Scrolls of Lore before the forum shut down. I used to bring it up that I would like to play a Furbolg, and people like, oh, everyone would name them Yogi Bear. Like, okay, so what? People are going to name their characters silly things. They're going to do that with any race you add to the game. Like, how many Death Knights would name XX Arthas DKXX have we seen? Like, does that mean that we shouldn't have Death Knights because people call them silly names? No. Like, you can even give them Pandaren animations. I would prefer if they still had their old animations from Vanilla and Wrath and so on. But they keep giving them newer and worse animations all the time. So, why not just give them Pandaren animations and make them a Pandaren allied race? Now, you could have done that. And they could be a good counterpart to ogres. Or if the Horde gets ogres that they have been waiting for decades, and Alliance gets Furbolgs, the Night Elf allied race that they have also been waiting for since WarCraft 3. And I think they would be very nice counterparts that would work together well. Now, the last two positions are ones that I added like almost post-script. And they're two very popular races that I think that would be very good choices. And the first one of them is the Naga, of course. It's one of the most popular fan options. Like, many people would want to play a Naga. And the only counter argument that I really see against them is that they have tails. So, like, how do they equip pants? Normally, they just equip the pants, and they have the pants. The existing model that is already in the files, that is a character model, actually, that is fully available, that could be fully playable, like, today. They could turn a switch, and you would have playable Naga. And it would work perfectly fine. Like, they can equip pants, and they just wrap them around their tail, like a dress. Every single pant item, every single leg item. So it does look sometimes does look weird, but they're fully capable of equipping pants and boots and everything. And this is a similar problem with centaurs. Centaurs aren't on this list because there's some bigger problems with centaurs, like mounts. What happens when a centaur mounts a horse? What does it look like when a centaur mounts a horse? It looks like it mounted a horse, if you know what I mean. But back to Naga. Naga also have some problem with mounts, but they could just wrap their tail around the horse or like hang it off the side. It's not really a problem with the Naga. And they can equip. Certainly, they can equip more items than Mechanomes or Drakthir. So it's not really a problem that they have the tails. And many people want to play this very lore-rich, very old race. So, why not add a Blizzard? Like, everyone wants to play Naga. Maybe not everyone, but certainly a lot of people would love to play Naga. Last race on my list is the Vrykul. It's also a very popular race because of the Viking aesthetics. Like the giant Vikings. Like, it's not really a whole lot I can say about them that isn't self-evident. Like the giant Vikings, that would be a really cool aesthetic to add to the game. Though they were also kind of a retcon in Wrath of the Lich King, because in Warcraft 3, when we see Northrend, it's like pretty much all dead or dying, and you have maybe a bunch of Tuskars here and there, but overall, all of Northrend in Warcraft 3 is like dead or dying because of the Scourge. And then turns out there was a whole bunch of Vrykul that were like sleeping around the place. So it was kind of silly in Wrath, but we got used to them. We got them seeded all over the world now. So we really should have the playable Vrykul. And Kul Tyrants, people sometimes bring up Kul Tyrants because like oh, you got playable Vrykul already. No, it's like that meme. I want playable Vrykul. We got playable Vrykul at home. Playable Vrykul at home. And you see a picture of a Kul Tyrant. Maybe you see it now. Maybe I added it in post. The Kul Tyrants aren't the same. Like they're like big humans, but don't do big humans. We want giant Vikings. Honorable mentions go to Krokul, or the Broken Draenei, and the High Elves. These are the two allied races that we should have gotten in Legion. Most of this list is really less about allied races, even if I called them as such, and more about proper full races. Even if they can fit the role of an allied race in the game systems, they, much like Vulpera, all of these races before were proper own races that could stand on their own. But these two, the Broken and the High Elves, are really an allied race. These are the two races that we really should have gotten in Legion instead of Lightforged Draenei and the Void Elves. I mean, the best allied races they could give us at the time was even holier Draenei and even edgier Blood Elves. It would be a better subversion of expectations if you could switch them around, if you could give us less holy Draenei, like the Broken, who have suffered a lot and who can't use the light, and if you give us High Elves, who flip that edginess back to some more traditional High Elven aesthetics. They would have been a much better allied races because they would subvert some of what we already had in the game instead of giving us more of what we already had, if you know what I mean. So these are my honorable mentions because they do not fit the mold of the main races as the rest of my list. There's of course dozens and dozens of other races that could be great player races, like Gnolls and Quilboar and Murlocs. Murlocs are probably very popular with many players, but I think that really should stay like just a mascot. for pets and stuff. And there are like many allied races that could be added, like Wildhammer dwarves. Maybe they don't need to add them. Maybe the aesthetics or the added customization to the regular dwarves could be enough for a Wildhammer dwarf. But there's a lot of other potential races that could be added to the game. Like Grummels. Grummels are also a very good candidate that I would love to see playable someday. Probably not going to happen very soon. There's dozens and dozens of races that you could add that could make very great additions to World of Warcraft. But if I kept going on about the potential races, I would be here for hours. I probably already sat here for like half an hour already. So you could probably do a lot with them, but these races are my top 12 plus some honorable mentions for what I think Blizzard really needs to add to World of Warcraft as a playable race. Did I miss any races that should be really great in World of Warcraft that you think that should be playable before everything else? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and if you want to support the channel, I do not have a Patreon, but you can do it on my Ko-fi page linked in the video description below. And I hope to see you next time.